Look to your school. Be smart, dummy, dummy, be smart. Don't get shocked if you get mocked. It's what you find when you use your mind. Don't you sweat it, look 'em in the eye. Don't regret it, hold your head high. Be smart, dummy, dummy, be smart. Try to show some tenderness, even when they're playing chess. You think it's dumb to be smart? But that's the way you make art. So be smart, dummy, dummy, be smart. Use your brain, that's a start. It's okay to be smart. Don't you think that you are cool? Sorry, dummy, the joke's on you.
Hi, I'm James E., and this is Change Your Mind. I live in the divided states of America, and we're divided because we don't listen to one another, and we try to change other people's minds without changing our own. Sometimes when we talk to each other, we aren't listening to the responses. So, how do we change our mind? It's an interesting question, but I think keeping your mind open to what other people are telling you is a start. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to lead by example by changing my mind about a subject that I know little to nothing about. And sometimes I know a great deal about it, more than I think I know, because sometimes we forget that no matter how much we know about a subject, we only know a little. There's always more to know. And the subject today is mental health. It's a scourge across the United States today, and there's very little that I think that I can do about it. And I'm not sure that we have the right approach as a society to it. I don't even know if we have the right understanding of it. So I brought in a guest today to help me to increase my understanding. Is there something that we can do today to make the battle mental health, that to do the battle against mental health better than we're doing today? And Olivia from Nami, hi.
Hi, James. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you so much for being here. Can you tell me a little bit about what NAMI is?
Yes, so NAMI, also known as NAMI, people never know how to say it. Nope.
Yeah.
You'll hear it you'll hear it each way all the time. So no matter what, each way is right and each way is wrong.
It's like my last name, Eid. I hear it pronounced multiple ways.
Yes, exactly. So NAMI or NAMI, it's a nationwide grassroots organization. It stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there's about 600 different affiliates across the United States, actually over 600 affiliates. And I'm from the San Mateo County affiliate. And the San Mateo County affiliate, we're very small, but we're small, tiny but mighty and still growing.
Uh-huh.
We provide free mental health services to all of San Mateo County.
And that's in California, Northern California.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you for the clarification. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's in Northern California. It's right outside of San Francisco.
Right.
And our NAMI's overall mission is to educate, advocate, and support. And, as I said, we're nonprofits. We do all these things for free as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we serve individuals with mental health diagnoses. We also serve family members and their caregivers and some other targeted audiences.
And how did you get started with this? Did you just stumble upon it? Do you know somebody that was involved in it? Like, that's usually the way it is. You know somebody who knows somebody or something like that. How did you get started?
So this actually goes back to my mom. My mom was involved with NAMI. She used their services for, when my family was going through a hard time. She used their family support services. And then, we have this big event every year called NAMI Walks, and it's like this annual fundraiser. Mm-hmm. And my mom was a volunteer on the committee right when I was looking for another job. And she goes, oh, NAMI needs people. They're like doing this big walk and, they're really needing more people. So I applied and I got the job, and I've been there for just over a year. But I do contribute mainly to my mom. And, I've always wanted to get involved with the mental health field. So it gave me that.
Did you have any education or background requirements to get hired, or was it just something where you showed up and they took you? Explain to me a little bit about, like, what are my chances of getting involved, for example?
Good question. So there aren't too strict of requirements. It's just people who have a passion to help others. And have a desire. So I came on as a staff, but we also have our volunteers are really what fuel us and help us be able to do what we do. And as a volunteer, there aren't, for different positions, there's different requirements, but nothing too big. And what it really comes down to is like a passion to help. And then we can find you a volunteer position and our different options.
Okay. So you're saying basically that the volunteers are the backbone of the organization, and just about anybody who has a passion and willingness to help can get involved.
Exactly.
And how would I contact? Can I look up Nami, for example? Is that one way I could do it? Or
Can you
because
say that one more time?
Nami.
Can you say that one more time?
I was just wondering if you had a website. I could create a banner for it. Like, should I like www dot
Yep, www.namisanmateo.org.
sanmateo.org. Now my spelling is pretty poor.
Let's see if you got it.
So
yep, that's it.
okay. All right. So scrolling across the bottom of your screen now is the website. And I'm sure that you have something on the website. If they go to the website, then they can contact you and say, I want to volunteer.
Yes, so if you go to the website and you go to get involved, there'll be a button that says volunteer. And you'll be able to fill out a form, and our volunteer coordinator will get in touch with you and tell you about the different opportunities we have. We have opportunities. If you're someone who's experienced mental health conditions, you can then mentor someone in our program called Peer Pals, or you can be a facilitator for one of our support groups, or you can lead mental health presentations at schools called Ending the Silence.
Wow.
You can also get involved on the resource line called the helpline. And you can, when people call and they look for resources, you can be the one to point them in the right direction.
Wow. So, like if I have a phone, I can be of service.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And even if you don't, we can help you find one or have different access to one.
All right. So, do you have like an office that people go to, or how do people meet other people that are working with you?
So we do have an office, but we don't really use it for people coming in and meeting
I see.
us.
Okay.
But our main ways, you can call our phone number, which is on the website. It's not on the top of my head, unfortunately.
That's okay. No, all right.
But you can call the phone number or just send an email to nami@namisanmateo.org. And that's how you can get in touch with us, and we'll give you a call.
Okay. And like what I was thinking about though is that usually I would like to meet other people that are doing the same kind of thing that I am. And so would it be like going on a walk? Would that be the way to do it? Or how would you suggest that if I wanted to meet other people that are active in my community in this area, how would I get involved that way so I can just meet more people?
That's a good question. So we do have some. One of our different services is we do a lot of outreach events. So we have different tabling events, and you can reach out and say like, hey, like when are you going to be tabling next? I would love to come by and meet some people from NAMI. We also have every other month we have a general member meeting, and at this general member meeting, it's currently virtual, but a lot of our members come, and this is when you can just see faces, and we talk a little bit about NAMI in the beginning, and then we bring presenters that we hope our audience will find, interesting each time. On September 26th, we have a presenter coming named Ellen Cookman, and she is an attorney who's going to talk about special needs planning. We just try to bring interesting topics to our community every other month.
Right, because why reinvent the wheel if someone else has figured out how to be supportive of special needs? Why not take their experience and make it your own? It seems to me that's a great service to provide to people. So that's one of the things that somebody who's just now, I guess, how would you know that you need these services? Or how would you know that, like you said, your mother was involved? How did you know that she did it herself, or you were just, kind of saw that she was doing it and that's how you learned about it. But what if I'm just struggling myself? How would I even know that I need this type of support, this type of help? Is there indicators or something, some red flags maybe is what I'm thinking? Like I can say, hey, I should turn to Nami. I'm going to say Nami from now on, just because you taught me that.
Yeah, you could. That's a very good question. So there's different warning signs to look out for. Of course, mental health conditions show up in different people in different ways.
Sure.
But the way someone explained it to me one time that made sense, but it was just, each mental health condition also has its own signs and symptoms. But it's like, say, you had a breakup. So you're sad for a bit. You're sad for the next like 2 or more weeks. But
Never happened to me.
no, never.
Kidding. Of course.
Heartbreak touches most of us,
Right.
unfortunately. So, you're sad because of the heartbreak, but say months later, you're still really sad, or now you're totally over the breakup, but you're still sad. It's like, if you're feeling still sad or anxious and there's not really a reason for it and it's lasting for more than 2 weeks, that's generally when it's like, okay, maybe I need some help. Like, I don't really have an explanation for this sadness and anxiety. Also, if you're experiencing like drastic mood changes, like maybe you're feeling really good one moment and then really bad another moment, or you're doing like risk-taking behaviors, say you don't have your license and you're taking a car to go driving, if you're exhibiting some of these signs, it's like, okay, like maybe this is a time to get help, or you're just not feeling like yourself. Withdrawing from your friends, or other people are noticing that you're acting different. For each mental health condition, it's going to be a little bit different.
Sure.
But
Sure.
if you're not feeling okay and you're acting out of your normal, how you act, it could be worth looking into services. And it's just, all it takes is a first step. And you could try it and be like, wow, like I really relate to all of these things. Like, this is what I needed. Or you can be like, okay, maybe I need something different. So
Right.
it doesn't hurt to try. It actually hurts more to not try. So
I really have found that to be true in my life, is that, there's so many things that I talk myself out of even trying, and there's no reason not to try. The worst case scenario really is, well, that didn't work, and move on to the next thing, see what does work. But one of the things that occurs to me is, if before I would reach out to Nami, I would say to myself, I would wonder, is I would feel some sort of shame, some sort of like, I'm admitting that I'm broken or something's wrong with me. And that might be hard for me to do. Do you experience that? Do you encounter that? Or is that a normal thing to feel?
it's definitely normal to feel. You are not alone in feeling that. It's really hard to ask for help and to admit that you're experiencing these things. I mean, no one, like, I think something that's really important for people to know is that no one chooses mental health. No one chooses mental illness. No one chooses to feel poorly or have these mental health conditions. No one wants it. So it's not anything you did. It can happen to anyone, regardless of your life, how you were raised, your environment you're in. No matter those factors, it can happen to everyone. And something else that has really stuck with me is, a mental health condition is a medical condition. So say you have a toothache, and you wouldn't go around with this painful toothache and not doing anything about it. You'd be like, wow, I have this toothache. Like, I should go to the doctor and check out my toothache. Mental health condition is the same thing. It's like, wow, I feel really sad. Like, this
And I'm
is,
not ashamed that I have a toothache.
yes, exactly.
I don't say I can't go to the dentist because I feel bad about having a toothache. No, you just take action. You get it taken care of.
Exactly. And we dream of a world where a mental health condition is the same thing.
Right.
It's like, there's nothing to feel ashamed about. It's just, it's time to get help. And there's no shame in admitting that. There's actually a lot of power in it.
And thank you for saying that. And what I heard you say was that this is not something tell me if I heard you correctly, because or maybe I just read this into what you were saying. It's not something that you look to blame someone for. I, I can't blame my mom for the way I feel right now. I can't blame uh, my next door neighbor because they used the lawnmower at 8 a.m. and ruined my day. Or it's a mental health issue is can affect anyone at any time. Is what I heard you say, and it's not something that you need to assign a blame for. And blame is another side of shame. If we have to, we end up blaming ourselves. It's a feeling of shame. If we blame others, then it takes away our ability to treat it, to get help with it for it. Am I saying what you were saying in a different way, or am I just making that up as I go along?
No, yeah, that makes sense. I think, sometimes there are factors and people who play into you having a mental health condition. You
Sure.
know, some of these, it's like nature and nurture. So some of us are predisposed. I can't say that.
Predisposed.
Yes,
Okay.
to like having mental health conditions. And then it's something in our environment or a life situation that we have that triggers it. So
Or exasperates it. Yes.
yeah, so it's like turning it on versus turning it off. You can have something that stays off your whole life, and then something triggers it, turns on, and then you're like, "Wow, why am I feeling this way all of a sudden?" So
Right.
it's not that there's things to blame; it's that there's things that can cause you to feel certain ways, and that's where therapy comes in.
And it's what somebody says to me is sometimes is like life happens. Life happens to all of us, and life sometimes isn't all a bed of roses. And sometimes we find adversity, and we're taught that we have to fight through adversity. But sometimes it triggers these other feelings that we don't necessarily make the connection between the trigger and the feelings, and we internalize them, and we don't recognize that we need assistance, therapy, talk therapy. Talk therapy, is this part of the things that your NAMI would do, or is that something you would refer others to, or how does that work?
So that's something we can refer people to. We have support groups
Ah,
um, that we have, but we do not have one-on-one. And but that's where our helpline is also really helpful, where people can call our helpline and say, "Hey, I'm looking for like an individual therapist. I can't afford much of it," or give them your situation, and we can direct you towards that. And something else I also wanted to add is that like something else I think about is, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control what we do with it. And that goes back to like I feel shamed of getting help, but getting help is actually your strength. By getting help, you're showing like I'm taking ownership of how I'm feeling and I'm doing something about it.
right.
Like you can't control what happens to you, but you can control what you do with it. So,
And that's something to feel proud of,
yes. Yes.
that you're taking action for your, because self-care is not selfish. You're not being selfish to take care of yourself, because you can then show up better for other people. You can be more helpful to other people if you're taking care of yourself in the first place.
I agree. I actually usually encourage people to be more selfish. Most people are not selfish enough, and I'm like, you got to take care of yourself, or you can't effectively help others.
That's really the uh, wiser people than me have told me that before, and eventually it sunk in. I don't think I believed it at first, but I think it's been very much a part of my recovery. In my case, and I wanted to ask you about this too, because as you can see above my head there, I wrote a book about my experience with addiction and recovery, and it's available on Amazon. But I wanted to ask you, is addiction part of the things that you would be able to be a service to people that are suffering from that, or trying to recover from addiction?
Yeah, so our services are not necessarily geared towards a specific mental health diagnosis. We try to treat overall. So, for example, our one of our support groups, or one of our main support groups, is called Connections, and it's just for people who are struggling. Like, just come to our support group, and no matter what condition you're experiencing, it's a time for us to come together. And there's also so I guess this kind of goes for all of our services. It's more general versus treating a very specific thing. But we also can direct you towards resources that treat a very specific thing.
Right, because different addictions can be to different things. There's overeating, there's, drug addiction, there's alcohol addiction, there's all sorts of different types of things, and you wouldn't have one size fits all necessarily. But maybe that would be a another attempt to, because I find that, having somebody to talk to that has some knowledge of what you're going through is an enormous gift. It's
Mhm.
really, it's really to talk to somebody who can't relate to what you're saying. It feels alienating. But if someone can just, like you're doing right now, just nod your head while you're speaking, that's reassuring. And that helps feel like, oh, I'm not ashamed because someone else has gone through something similar. Not necessarily exactly what I've gone through, but something similar to what I've gone through.
Yeah. And so one of our programs called Peer Pals, is it speaks directly to that. It's someone who has lived experience with a mental health condition helping someone who's experiencing it and struggling with it right now. Because it's, being able to connect with someone who's been there
Right.
and who gets it. So yeah, I totally agree. There's so much power in just someone listening to you and relating to you.
Yeah, and power is the operative word there because, it's the relief that it gives is
Mhm.
immense, and it's one of those things where unless you've experienced it, it's hard to put into words what that feels like, to feel like you're finally understood
Mhm.
and someone gets it. And, that kind of experience. And the other question that comes to mind immediately is if you have these different programs, like how do you manage them all? How do you know when people are going to show up at the right time, at the right place? How do you make it public knowledge so that the other people who need the service know to go to that place at that time? How do you do all of that?
Yeah, I it's a good question. I think it's just trying to make our communications as frequent and as expansive as we can. We have a lot of email communications. We also have
Mhm.
outreach at tabling events so we can tell people about our services. And we try to make things very clear and make us very inviting so that people feel like they can come in. That's like, we try to be a warm community, not like
Mhm.
some very structured like institute. We're like a very warm community who just wants to help people. And when people come to us, we try to take the time to talk with them and direct them to what seems to be the best fit. And, we're available for people to call us and email us and be like, hey, how do I get into this support group again? Like, this is what I'm experiencing. Like, do you think this could help me? Like, I don't know what to do. That's what we
Right. And often that's when if they are courageous enough to take the first step to say I need help and reach out, they still don't know what kind of help they need
Mhm.
often. So you can give them guidance, which is so critical at that stage in someone's, at least for me, when I was going through my first off, there was the denial that I had an issue. And then when there was an acceptance that I did have an issue, it was what do I do about it was the next thought.
Mhm.
And it wasn't clear. It certainly wasn't clear to me. But you mentioned a couple of times table events, and can you tell me a little bit more about what that means? Because I don't have a real picture of that in my mind.
Yeah, so we have an outreach manager and we have like a NAMI table and we go to like
Oh,
community partners will have events.
right.
So yeah, so we'll go to like mental health events and have a table there where we talk about our services. I actually just went to um an earthquakes game. No, not there's a soccer team and they had
Oh,
some,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the
San
earthquakes.
Jose earthquakes. All right.
Yeah, and they had some like youth event that we went to and had a table there. We actually tabled at the Giants game one time. So
Uh-huh.
when people have like mental health nights or mental health events, we try to be there and be able to promote our services and let people know what's available.
And how are you finding the community? I know that in Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, it's it's probably more accepting than some areas in the country. So they're pretty welcoming about giving you a table to make yourself known, and you're finding that that's not an issue. Being able to find people that will allow you to set up a table and then distribute information, that works pretty well here.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of people trying to talk more about mental health and
Yes.
trying to bring more awareness to it, which is so great, and it has been quite successful. But there's still so much more progress to make, where it's more like you don't hear about the people who aren't accepting about it because we are in the community that is accepting. And
Right.
that's just like our tailored audience, where we also want to get into those communities within San Mateo County that still aren't entirely accepting of it, but we don't even know about them because they wouldn't come to us or present themselves. So there's still a lot more that needs to be done, and reaching those other audiences as well. But it is amazing to see. I was actually just talking to a school, and they're telling me about all the mental health presentations they're having this year, and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing. I think last year they maybe had half as many, and now they're having even more. So it's
That's
great.
wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to hear. When I was growing up, there wasn't anything like that. So to see that the schools are open to it, one, and are actually encouraging it too, that warms my heart, because it's a sign of progress. And I think the challenges facing the youth of today are different and probably more challenging than the ones that we faced. All children growing up anywhere have certain challenges to face. But now with like, there was no such thing as cyberbullying, for example, when I grew up. So there are novel things that the parents didn't go through them, so they may not be as sensitive to helping the child go through it. And as they were in my generation, my experience was much like my parents' experience, and that's not so much true anymore. The children are going through something very different.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's changing each generation of what each generation faces. And now,
Mhm.
not I don't know if one's harder than the other. I can't speak to them,
Sure.
but with social
Different.
media, yeah, different. And social media is a big challenge.
Right.
People get addicted to it, and their self-worth and happiness comes from it. And
Right.
there are so many studies about the negative effects they have on people and anxiety, and it's really hard to look at the statistics sometimes because people get so pulled in, and then it's hard to be like, wait, this isn't helping you, like how can we help you get out of this? And
Right.
but they're in too deep often.
Right. So do you feel, I'm going to close with this question and then ask you if there's anything else you want me to ask you about, but do you feel optimistic about meeting the challenges of the mental health challenges of today? Do you feel optimistic? Do you feel um, something in between pessimism and optimism? How do you feel? What's your gut reaction to that question?
I feel optimistic. I mean, the fact that I'm here talking about this, the fact that like our single affiliate is growing, like we're doing what we can, and that's all we can do. And there's optimism in that because it's not like we're sitting back and no one's doing anything. There are people taking actions to reach more people and expand our services and expand the quality of services as well, and accessibility. So I feel optimism about that, and can only go up. And as long as there's people in this world who want to keep going up with us, then we'll make it.
And thank you for that. You made me feel better about the topic. So if they don't live in San Mateo, there's probably a national NAMI organization, like NAMI.org, probably. Like,
Yeah, so go on to nami.org and type in where you live, and you can see if there's one near you.
okay. Now, is there anything else that you want to talk about that I forgot to ask you about or failed to entirely bring up?
No fail. No. I just wanted to say one more thing
Sure.
is be a good friend. You started with like, what can I do to like help other people? And I feel powerless in this. Well, what you can do is just be a good friend. Notice if your friend's feeling withdrawn, or if your friend's acting off, instead of taking it personal, first start with like, hey, like, is everything okay? Like, I notice you're acting different. And when your friend's going through it, it might be really hard for you because they might pull away or be distant, but that's when they need you most. So don't let them push you away. Stay there with them, and, just let them know that you're there. And that makes a big difference. And also, if you're listening to this and now you know about Nami, direct them towards Nami as well.
Wow, you just kind of broke my heart there. I bet you were a good friend. But so the idea is because I've always found it difficult to navigate between interfering and intervening. When I feel like you know, sometimes it's better for me to not say anything or do anything because I don't want to interfere. But then there's sometimes when somebody needs help, and you gotta, like you said, don't let them push you away. Reach out, keep in contact.
Yeah, I've actually been playing around with that as well. And
Mhm.
it's something I'd come to a little bit later, and just being in a more stable state myself, I'm able to do it. But I have this one friend who I've had for a really long time, and when she's going through a hard time, she like won't really talk to me, and she won't respond, or she'll respond just a little bit. I'll
Mhm.
make plans, she'll cancel them last minute, and like I can imagine it's so easy for someone in that time to be like, I'm just trying to help. Like, why are you pushing me away and being mad about it?
Yeah,
Or like, wow, I guess they just don't want to be friends with me and taking it personally.
right.
And instead, I've developed this relationship with her where it's like, okay, don't talk to me for a bit. I like cancel plans. Okay. And even when she's not responding, I'll just occasionally be like, hey, I'm thinking of you. Like, I'm here for you. And
Oh,
there's no like there's when she's going through a hard time, there's nothing I expect from her. I'm not like needing anything from her. I'm just wanting to be there, not reaching in, not pulling away, just here and stable for her. So that's something I found too, of just like letting them have their distance, but just constantly reminding them you're there so that when they do need you, they can still go to you.
wow, I'm gonna replay that last part because you sound so grown up. You
Thank
sound
you.
like you really, that I wish someone had told me that when I was younger because I would have been a better friend, I think. So that's good to get that message out there. And, I'm not saying I can't change the past. I'm just saying that, that being that type of friend is an aspiration of mine to just be there and be there for them and not take it personally, which, boy, howdy did I. And I was really good at that.
Most people do. It's not just you. And it's
Right.
hard. It's
Right.
so hard. And especially if you don't understand mental health conditions, it's even
Right.
harder.
Right.
You know,
Well, thank
I,
you for helping us understand all that you're doing and all that needs to be done. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm getting yelled at that I'm running over, so I'm going to have to say goodbye to you now. But scrolling across the bottom of your screen, if you want to contact Olivia and the people that work with her, please just go to that website and you'll find somehow to get connected and get involved.
thank you so much, James, for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Okay. Goodbye for now. All right. That was Olivia from Nami. I pronounce it Nami now. But I want to remember that we need to change our minds about subjects like this, about mental health. And one of the things that we have to remember is that change is an inside job. You know, change starts within, and it's inside ourselves where we begin. And it's not our brains, it's not our hearts. It's deep inside where it starts. So you can change your mind. And if I can, you can. And thanks for watching the show today. And please stick around for future shows on the Broadcast TV network. Thank you.